So you have a Wix website and you want to control member approval, but you want to pre-approve people based on a certain factor in their sign-up, such as the email that they sign up with or something like an employer ID or a secret code that you provide. Welcome back to the Wix Wiz. I'm Eitan. Today we're going to be learning how to do just that, how to pre-approve members using either email or some other employer ID or code during the sign-up process. We're going to learn all the different APIs that we need to set up in the backend. It's a little bit of coding, but nothing too crazy and too complex. And in the end of the day, what you'll have is a pre-approval system where people who are not pre-approved will just go over here to pending, and pre-approved people will automatically become site members without you needing to go in and approve them manually.
We have new videos every week, and that next one might just have the magic you need for your site and business. The best way not to miss it is to listen to all these happy subscribers and hit that subscribe button.
And now that you've gone ahead and subscribed, let's get started. For today's tutorial, I am using a blank Wix Classic website. All I've done is I've installed the Wix Members app. So that's why you see this login bar up over here. If you haven't done that yet, you can just go over here to Add Apps and search for that app here inside the app market, Wix Members, and add it to your site. It will also be added automatically if you add certain apps like Wix stores, pricing plans, etc. to your site. Now that I've gone ahead and done that, if I go ahead and take this home page, for example, and I turn this into a members only page by going to the access over here, what used to be called permissions, and turning this into site members. And now only members will be able to access this page. Okay, so essentially I'm simulating a site that's only accessible by members, but this may or may not be your case. So you may have an entire site that you want to protect. You may have some specific pages or some specific areas that are member only. But essentially, if I go ahead and publish this, go to view site, then as soon as I reach this home page, I will be prompted over here to sign up or log in. Okay, so now essentially what we want to do is we want to build the list of people who are going to be allowed to access this site, and essentially the people that we are pre-approving to become members of the site. So in order to do that, we're going to use a CMS collection. So you can go over here to the side where you see CMS, and I'm going to create a new collection. So I'm just going to click over here, create collection, get started, and I am going to click start from scratch. You can also import from a CSV, like if you have already like a list of the approved emails or IDs or whatever you're going to be using. You can also import from CSV, but I recommend, even if you're importing from CSV, to go ahead and start from scratch and then import the CSV later on, because otherwise the naming of your collection is going to be a little off. So what's the name of my collection? So let's just call this pre-approved members. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if that's a real word or not, but let's go ahead and create that. And now that we have our collection, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to add in the list. So Wix added in all these kind of fields that we don't really need here. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of delete these excess fields over here. You don't have to delete them, but I believe that you shouldn't have anything in your collection that you don't actually need, because it just kind of makes everything a little overly complicated and distracting and creates a mess. So let's just go ahead and quickly delete those. Now essentially we just have this title field. So you could use this title field if you want, or you can go ahead and create like a new field over here. So what we're going to be doing initially is that we're going to be pre-approving people by email. Later on, I'll show you a way to do it with another type of identification. But the first base layer that we're going to build is that we're going to check the email that the person uses to sign up, and then decide if that email is in our pre-approved list. So I'm going to add a new text field over here, choose field type, and I'm just going to call this email. I'm going to hit save, and in order to get rid of this title field, I'm going to go ahead and make this the primary field right over here. And then I'm going to be able to delete this title field because I don't really need it. So let's go ahead over here and delete. And that is really everything that we have to do here in terms of our collection. One more thing that is optional but highly, highly, highly recommended would be to change the permissions and privacy. And this collection that we just built out of the box is not a show content collection. We don't want anybody to be able to see this list of emails. This is really just for our own administrative purposes. And so I'm going to switch this over here to advanced, and you'll see here that it's marked that only collaborators have access to all the aspects of this collection. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Great, so now we're really, really done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add in our first item. So let me just go over here, add item, and this item will be an email address. So let's just call this test1234@gmail.com. And I'm going to add this in, save. And for some reason it still leaves me over here, but here you can see that this email was added in, and we can add in a few other emails if, you know, I'm just doing a demo, but in real life, you're going to add the actual emails here of the people that you want to pre-approve or upload via CSV using import items here, like I showed you before. Okay, let's just add, you know, one or two more emails. So we'll test4567@gmail.com and test abcd@gmail.com. Okay, so these are our pre-approved emails, and any email that is not in this list should not be pre-approved as a member. Any email that's in this list should automatically be approved. So let's go over here now, and we can close this out. And now essentially what we're going to want to do is we are going to want to tap into that event that happens on our site when a member is created. So here, if I pop over to the good old Velo documentation, a bit nostalgic for some of you who might have been using Wix for a while, and you'll see that some of the other APIs we're going to use are in the SDK, but all of these events for the different apps, so like when something happens, okay, so we're inside of the Velo documentation over here, and inside of events, let me show you, events and service plugins, and specifically we're in the members app that we're using, and we're going to be tapping into this on member created event. So in order to tap into this event on our site, it's actually not so complicated. What we'll have to do is we will have to, whoops, that's the live site. We're going to have to first turn on dev mode. So if you're in Wix Classic like myself, you're going to go over here to dev mode and then turn on dev mode just like that. If you happen to be inside of Wix Studio, this will also work the same way. Just turning on dev mode is a little different. You're going to look for like squiggly brackets that look kind of like this on the lower left side over here. Otherwise, pretty much it'll going to be the same experience. And then we can open up this code panel over here on the side, and we're going to click this plus button where it says backend. Okay, so right over here it says backend. We're going to click this plus button, and we're going to want to add in this handle backend events file. So you'll see automatically a file with events.js will be added in here to the backend. And this is where we need to paste the code that will run and handle the event when somebody signs up to the site. So let's go ahead and get rid of this boilerplate here that Wix put in. We're going to go to the documentation, and we're just going to either click the copy button right over here or copy just specifically the part of it that you need. And then go over here back to, let me get rid of that so I don't get confused again. And we're going to go ahead and just paste this right over here. Okay, so you see it says Wix members on member created event. And this event is essentially all the data from that specific event. And we could see over here that there's a bunch of things that Wix put in here to log, but I'm just going to get rid of this. The member ID is cool. That could help us for like some sanity testing later. But what we're really, really interested in is this login email right over here. Okay, because that's the email that we're going to be comparing. So what we're going to do over here, okay, is we're going to say const login, or we could say const email equals to event dot entity dot login email. Okay, and this email, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use this later on. So what we need to do now is essentially we need to build the system which is going to evaluate if this email is inside of that CMS collection, and if so, approve the member. So we could build this all out here inside the events.js file, but I would recommend doing it in a different file just to keep things nice and clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to our backend, okay, again, and I'm going to create a new file. This time it's just going to be a plain JS file. Usually in our tutorials, if you happen to watch the channel a lot, we're usually adding web modules because those need to be called from the front end. But since everything here is going to be happening in the back end, we could actually just add in a plain JS file and call the functions from there. So that's what we're going to do here. And we're going to name this file. You can name it whatever you want. Let's call it member approval. Okay, just because that's what's going to happen over here. So now what do we need to do here? So we need to do two things, essentially. One is to check that the member is in the approval list, and the second is to actually approve them. So let's start with the first one. So in order to check if the member is in the approved list, what we're going to do is we're going to need to query that collection. So in order to do that, we're going to import the Wix data APIs to query collections. So let's go ahead and add an import over here. So import, and I'm going to import here items from, and this is going to be, let me just focus in right on here, at Wix/data. Okay, and you'll notice that this has like a kind of red squiggly line under it. That means that we need to install the package. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click install it now. And it's installing here in the background. And in the meantime, what we could do is we could start to write out the function here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say here async function. And we'll name this function check or verify approval. And this function is going to check and see if the email that we provide it, so we're going to have here one parameter, which is going to be the email. And we're going to check and see if this email is an email that's in the collection. So in order to do that, we're going to say here const, we'll call this query result. And we'll say here await items dot query. And here we're going to need the collection ID of our CMS collection that we built earlier. Okay, so in order to find that, we can go over here to databases, go here to pre-approved members, and just copy here the collection ID. Okay, and then we can paste the collection ID right over here. Okay, so we're going to paste that collection ID right over here. And the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to check and see if this email equals any of the items email fields in the collection. So we're going to have here dot equals, and the field is going to be email. If you're not sure, you can check that in the same place that I got the collection ID from. And we're going to check and make sure that that equals to the email that we passed as a parameter into the function. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to run find. And one important thing that we're going to need to do in a moment is we're going to need to elevate this entire process here. And that's because we want to circumvent the admin permissions which we put on the collection, because we're calling this from the back end and we know it's secure. So we're going to handle that in just a moment. But for now, let's add the logic that will check and see if we actually got back any results. So what we'll do here is we'll say return query result dot items dot length is bigger than 0. Okay, and essentially what that means is that this query where we went to go check our CMS collection to see if there are any items came back with at least one item. So that means there's at least one item in that collection where the email matches the email we just provided, and that means we have an approved member. Now, before we actually run a test to make sure that this is working, let's do that final step, which will be to elevate our items.query so that we can run it as an admin. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to import auth from @wix/essentials. And also this import, we're going to need to install it over here. And what we're going to be doing after that installs is we're just going to say here that const elevated items query equals to auth.elevate items.query. So essentially we take the method that we have over here and we pass it into this auth.elevate. Okay? And then this thing that pops out the other end is what we're going to actually use to run our query. And that way we're running this as an admin. So that's all we need to do. And this might also come in handy later on once we're dealing with the member approval. So in order to test here in the backend, what we could do is we could add the export keyword over here before our function. And then you'll notice this little blue play arrow comes up. So we can click this play arrow right over here. And here now we have this playground here where we can test our function. So here we're going to pass in a parameter. So let's start off with an email that's not in the list. So let's just say hello@gmail.com. Okay, so that's not a pre-approved email. And if I run this function, then it should return false if it works. So let's see over here. There we go. So it took a little longer than I thought, but there you go. So returned with false. Now let's test it with one of the emails that is pre-approved. Let's see if I can remember them by heart. So it would be test 1234, I think was one of them. And I'm just going to go ahead and click here, run again. And this came back with true. Okay, so it's not an airtight test, but it's a pretty good indication that this is doing what we expected. So essentially, running this function with an email will tell us, yes, they should be approved. No, they should not be approved. So that is a really easy thing for us to integrate now. Now that we have that, all we need to do is to build the actual function which will check their approval and then approve them or not approve them. So let's go ahead and build that out. So we can build it out on top of this actually. So we're going to have here export async function. And this one actually needs to be exported because this one is one that we're going to use in another file. The one under it doesn't really need to be exported. You can get rid of the export keyword as soon as you're done testing because this one is internal. This only needs to be called inside of this file itself. And into this function, we're also going to pass in the email. And the first thing that we're going to do in this function is we're going to say const approved, let's say, equals to, or let's say, let's call it approved. Trying to think of a better word for that. Approved equals await verify approval. And we're going to pass in the email. Okay, and remember this should be either true or false. The next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to mark that member as approved using the members APIs. So here, a different part of the documentation. So here we're inside of the general API reference, specifically in the SDK portion. And here we have this API for approve member. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead over here and we're going to grab this right over here. Just going to copy the example that they have over here. And you can see in the example is that essentially all we need to do is pass in a member ID. We can verify that by taking a look here at the docs below. So here, ID of the member to approve. And then Wix will just approve the member for us. So let's go back over here into the editor. And I'm going to paste that code snippet that we just copied over right over here. And you'll notice here that we have another import. So another SDK package that we're using. So I'm just going to cut that and put that up here on top with our other imports. Okay, that's something that I see a lot of people accidentally kind of leaving imports throughout the file. It's best to have all the imports just up here on top. And also I'm going to install this import. Now, here we see something important which will require us to change a little bit of the logic here. So we see here that we need the member ID. Okay, so that means that into this function over here, which I forgot to name, so let's call this verify member and approve. Or that's not a good name. Approve verified member. Okay. So here we're going to pass in not only the email, but we're also going to pass in the ID. I'm going to pass in the ID first, and I'm going to call it member ID and email. Okay. And now over here, what we need to do is we just need to add some logic. So we're going to say here, if approved, which is the same way of saying that this thing came back as true. Then what we're going to do is we're going to await approve member, and we're going to pass in the member ID. Okay, just like that. And I'm not adding in any, error handling at the moment, which would generally be a good idea. But here, what I will do is after the approve member function response, I will add just like a console log. So we'll do here console.log, and we'll say here member approved, and we'll register the response over here. Okay, and that way we'll know everything ran correctly. And then the last piece of the puzzle over here is going to be to call this approved verified member from inside our events.js. Okay, so let's go ahead and just get rid of these because we don't need them. So we're going to import this function now over here, and that's why we need to export it. So we're going to approve verified member from, and here we're going to have the name of the file. So it's in the back end, and we called it member approval. Optionally, you could add .js, but it's not required over here. Then over here, we have the member ID because I didn't erase it before. To be honest, I didn't know that we would need it, but I'm happy that I kept it. Here at the end, all we need to do is call here approve verified member, and we're going to pass in the member ID, and we're going to pass in the email. Okay, just like that. And even though this is an asynchronous function, we don't really need to await it here because there's nothing else that really needs to happen here. So it really depends where you want to do like the error catching and stuff like that, but that's a little more advanced. So to keep it simple, we're going to leave it like this. And if this log here runs, then that should mean that everything, well, no, because there's no await beforehand. But let's move this log up then over here. And this should all work smoothly. Fingers crossed. So now we're ready to do some testing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to publish our site. And before we actually start to do any testing, I'm going to go and over here to developer tools, and I'm going to open up the Wix logs. You could also do this through the dashboard, but here we'll see any logs if we have any issues or anything like that. And I'm also going to just open the dashboard again separately so that we can go ahead and verify and check our members and stuff like that. So let's go over here to the members. Whoops, not that. Find our members over here. Wix kind of like hit it deep into the contacts. Okay, but here you can see all of our site members. At the moment, we don't have any, just the site owner. And let's see what happens as we go ahead and sign up. So now that we've published the site, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the live site. So let's go here to site, view site. And I'm going to log in. So, sorry, I'm going to sign up. This process will only happen during sign up. It's not going to happen during login. So let's go over here to sign up with email. And let's start off with an email that is not approved. One thing that we need to do before this, I'm very happy that I remembered because I almost forgot, is that we actually need to turn on manual approval. Because if you don't turn on manual approval, then all site members will automatically be approved, and the whole process that we built is for naught. So I'm very happy that I remembered that. But let's go over here. It's really a very quick thing to do. So let's just go here to manage member access. No, sorry, not over there. Yes, here, sign up and login settings. And here, instead of who can be a site member, everyone who signs up, only people I manually approve. Okay, so that's inside of settings, site member settings, sign up and login security. You could use the search bar as well to find it, or go here to settings in the dashboard. And I'm just going to go ahead and click save. So I'm very happy that I remembered that one because that would have been a bit of a bummer to have to test twice, but it wouldn't have been a big deal. I would have caught on very quickly. So now that we've done that, we are now really ready to test. And I'm going to go over here back to the live site. And let me just refresh just in case. I don't know if that setting needs to be refreshed or not, but just in case. So here what we're going to do is I'm going to start with an email address that is not pre-approved. So let's go over here and we'll say bob@gmail.com. Okay, so that was not one of our pre-approved emails, and I'm not a robot, and I'm going to go ahead and sign up. And there we go. Okay, so we successfully signed up, and our request is waiting for approval, and we'll be notified. Okay. And if we go over here to the site members and just give a refresh here, then you'll see here that if we go to pending, then we have this member who was not on the list, and then we can decide if we want to approve them or block them. And now, if we go into the logs, by the way, then you can see here that a new member was created because this log runs for all members, okay, not only members that are approved, this log of the member ID. Now let's go ahead and try a email that has been pre-approved. So I'm going to go over here back to the site. I'm going to close this out. Let's just give this a refresh, and I'm going to try and sign up again. So let's go over here, sign up with email. And this time I'm going to use test1234, which is a pre-approved email. And let's just pick a password here and try and sign up. So let's go ahead and sign up. And you'll see here that we get the same message over here about waiting for approval. And that's because immediately after we signed up, that's our state. Remember, we only set the approval to approved later on. So let's see if that actually worked or not. So I'm going to go here to site members, and I'm just going to give here a refresh. And I see here that there are 2 members currently waiting for approval, which means that something did not go right in our pre-approval process. So that means we have some debugging to do, which is fun. So let's go back over here into the editor. And so one thing that I'll do first before we do add in like console logs and try and do debugging is that I just want to make sure that this approve member function works. Okay, and I think that this, now that I think about it, this is probably where it's failing because we tested this function already. And if you remember, as I told you before, we probably are going to need to elevate this as well in order to use it as an admin, because if we go to the documentation, then we can see here that the permissions that this requires is manage members. So in order to give those permissions, essentially, we'll need to elevate to an admin level. So I'm guessing that that is where this is failing, but we can double check that. If we, first of all, what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and let's see if I could delete this member without blocking. Yeah, let me just delete this member. And what I'm going to do is, oh, I shouldn't have deleted it actually. Because okay, we'll use Bob. We'll use Bob instead, which is this first ID that we have over here. So we have Bob's member ID over here. So we can just grab the member ID. And let me just go ahead and copy that over. And we'll head into the editor, and I'll add the export keyword over here. Again, just that we can do the testing here in the back end. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit run right over here. And then we could just paste Bob's ID. You're going to want to put quotation marks around that, so it's a string. And then we can go ahead and hit run. And let's see what happens here. Okay, so we got an error. Okay, and there's not much in terms of details about what the error is, but we do have an error code over here, which is 403. And luckily, I happen to know that 403 means that there's some kind of permissions issue. It means it's forbidden. So let's go ahead and try and elevate that function. So I'm going to go over here and do the same thing that we did pretty much over here, just for this members.approve members. Okay, so that was a good demo of what will happen if you don't elevate. Because I'm sure that other people might forget as well, because that's something that can happen. So let's go over here and just zoom in right over here. And we'll say const elevated approve member, sorry, equals to auth.elevate members.approve member. Just like that. And then we're going to switch it out over here. So here we'll have elevated approve member. And now we're ready to test this again. So we can just go right back into our testing suite, because this automatically updates right over here. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit run. And I thought it automatically updates. Let me try and refresh it, because I don't think that we should have this. Let me just copy Bob's ID again. And I'm going to go back over here, and let's try and run our testing suite again. And yeah, it just takes us back to the same. I could hit the refresh button over here, put in Bob's ID, and let's go ahead and try and run that. Oh no. It's still giving me a 403 error, even though it's elevated. Interesting. So I was expecting this to work, in all honesty. Let's go ahead. What could be the problem here? Like, half of me thinks it's like some kind of caching error or issue, that the elevation is like, it didn't update the function here in the testing suite. I'm going to go with that idea first. Let me close this out. And I'll close the file and reopen the file. Maybe that will, should I refresh the editor? Let's try again. No, it still has this here, which makes me think that it'll still have the same issue. Okay, let me just double check the docs here. Yeah, and Wix sites and Wix apps use elevated permissions, which I'm doing. Change member status to approved and give access to members page only. Approves a pending member, unblock a blocked member. That's what we're trying to do. Okay, I'm going to try a few things, and I'll be back in a moment. I'm back, and it's been about a week since where I paused, and Wix claims that they have fixed the bug. So it was not something that I could have done possibly myself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hop over here to the NPM packages, and I'm going to go and I'm going to update this members package, because if they pushed a fix, then it's probably out in a new version of the package. So I'm going to go right over here. And I'm going to go to right here, install npm package. And then I'm going to go here to my installed packages, and I can see here, I see there are a few upgrades for the other ones. I don't want to play around with them at the moment, but for the members, I'm going to update to this new package. And then hopefully when we run the code again, it will work and actually allow us to create a member. To approve a member that we already have the ID for. So we already have our whole testing suite set up over here, and we just need to wait for the package to install in order to run a test. There we go. So it says that the new package has been installed. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over here and hit run again. So let's go ahead and try that out. And hopefully this time, no, update status. Okay, so it's a different error. So it's not a permissions error. So that's already, a different error is always a good thing. But let's see, update status is not allowed. Some, active, approved, unknown. Update status is not allowed. Unexpected status update. Let me just go over here and double check in my dashboard and make sure that this user is still pending. They were pending when I last left them, but maybe something changed unexpectedly. So let me just search over here for members. And let's go here to site members. Okay, so here they're both already site members, which makes me think that maybe when Wix was testing, they approved this member. Okay, and that's why it's not pending anymore. So in order for this to work, the member has to be pending. So what we'll do is we'll create a new pending member, which basically just means that we need to sign up with a member that is not part of the allowed list. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to go here to site, view site, and let me just go over here, sign up with email, and I'll just say maryjane@gmail.com, and I'll put a very secure password here. I'm not a robot. Sign up. Okay, so now we should have a new member over here. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, so we have a new pending member, which is Mary Jane. So let's go over here back to the editor, and I'm going to go and look for Mary Jane's member ID. So I'm just going to go over here, open full data, and here we have Mary Jane. I'm just going to grab the ID, just copy that cell right over there, and replace it right over here, just like that. And hopefully, it's the second, third, fourth time the charm. There we go. Okay, so approved member returned with undefined. I'm not sure why it returned undefined. Let's go over here and see. Whoops, I need to, where's my code? Member approval. So we were running this function over here. Okay, so I don't have any kind of return over here. That's why it doesn't, that's why it didn't return with anything. Okay, but it does seem to have worked. Member approved, we have this over here. And if I go and refresh over here, then let's see. Yeah, all three members are approved. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to see if our auto approval works. Okay, and this means that we're going to try and sign up as one of the users in our allowed list. So let's just refresh our memory, because for you it's probably been a few minutes. For me it's been almost a week. So let's see what we have here in our pre-approved members collection. Okay, so we have here test1234@gmail.com. So let's go ahead and try signing up as that user and see if it auto approves us. So I'm going to go here back to, let me make sure to publish here, just so that the updated package and everything gets pushed out. And I'm going to go back to the live site, and I'm just going to hit refresh here. And I'm going to go ahead and sign up again. And this time I'm going to use test1234@gmail.com. And again, I'm going to use a very secure password here. And let's see. So I'm going to, before I even click sign up, let me do one small thing, which is to open up the developer logs just like that, just so that we can see what logs we have when I go ahead and click sign up. So I'm going to go ahead and hit sign up there. And I need to confirm the email. That's unfortunate because that is not an email that I have access to. Okay, let's do something else. Let's try and see if, I think the reason I might have needed to confirm that email is because I already tried to sign up as that person before. But let's do this. I'm going to go to the editor. And I'm going to go here to the approved members, pre-approved members, and I'm going to add another email that's like a little less conspicuous. So let's say here, Bob Marley or 1234 at gmail.com. Okay, I think I misspelled Marley, but forgive me. And I'm going to copy that. So this is one is also on our allowed list now. Okay. And, even though I see this member is already approved, so it did kind of work, okay, this is all very misleading. Let me see what's going on here. Okay, so it did pre-approve test 1, 2, 3, 4, but for some reason it asked me also to confirm my email. I think that probably has to do with the fact that I had tried this user before, and yeah, but we can do one more test just to like be 100% sure, but it seems to be working. I'm just going to sign up with email here, put this one, and let's try this. So I'm just going to go ahead and sign up. Okay, this time I didn't get that kind of warning here. And if we go to our site members, then we can see here that, oh no, pending. Why is it still pending? Maybe this like backend code didn't run yet. Let's see, member with member ID was created and member approved now. Okay, so it takes a few seconds. Okay, so if you're kind of watching your members sign up live, then you might have to wait a few seconds, but assuming that you're not constantly inside of your dashboard staring at members signing up to your site, then this should feel pretty seamless to you. But it does take a few seconds, so just heads up on that. Like if you see it pending right after somebody signed up, then that does not necessarily mean that you have a problem. So that is how to pre-approve members based on email address. The next thing that we're going to explore is how to pre-approve them based on some other criteria. Like, for example, some kind of like employee ID, or even just some kind of special code that you share with people who are allowed to sign up. So let's go ahead and explore how we can approach something like that. Here back in the editor, in order to customize our sign up experience, we essentially have two options. So to get to that area, we're going to go here to pages and menus, go over here to sign up and login, right over here. And then we're going to go over here to our member sign up form. And you'll see here that now we're using the default form. We have two other options here. I have other tutorials which extensively go into these different options and what you can do in each one. And with both of these alternative options, both custom form and Velo form, we can create a system similar to what we want to create. I'm going to go here now for the custom form because I think that's going to be more simple for a lot of you because it doesn't require you to do also the registration part using code. If you use a Velo form, then you need to do like the registration using code. But with the custom form, all we'll need to do is tweak our system that we already have a little bit and create a form using a custom form. So let's go ahead and select that. And I'm going to go ahead and click Add to Site. And essentially what this will do is it's going to replace our sign up with this light box where we have here, instead of just email password and social sign-ins, we have first like a form here, which we can edit. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid of this first name, last name field, assuming that I can. Let's go ahead and get rid of those two. Let's see. Yeah, so we're going to have here just email, password, and we're also going to have another field, which is going to be like an ID field. Okay, so I'm going to go here to add new field. And I'm looking here for, let's see. So we have different member fields here. I'm going to go here and look for a basic field. And I'm going to assume that it might be a combination of numbers and letters. So I'm going to choose here this short answer field right over here. And I'm going to change this to say, instead of place of address, so employer ID, let's say, something like that. Okay, so that's what's going to go over here into this field. And now we just need to see where this field saves. So here it says save field data to contacts. So I'm going to create a new field here, and I'm going to call this custom, I'm going to call this employer ID. And I'm just going to hit check over here. And what I want to double check here is that when we sign up, the information in this field is provided to us in the event in the back end when a member is created, because this is a contact field versus a member field. If it's not provided to us, then we might have to take a longer route and query the contact, get the contact information, and do that comparison. So let's run a quick test. I'm going to publish this change, and I'm going to sign up again to the site with an employer ID, and let's see if that data is accessible to us when in the backend. So let's just do here blah blah @gmail.com. We're going to have a password, and let's say the employer ID ABC123. Okay, so let's go ahead and sign up. And obviously we're not going to be automatically approved because this is not one of our pre-approved emails or pre-approved ID for that matter. There we go. So we signed up. Now let's take a look here at our logs, and we're going to wait for that log to pop in. Oh, shoot. I'm only logging the member ID here. Okay, that's my bad. So we need to we're going to need to run that test again. Let's go back over here into the events.js, and here I'm going to put in a new log. So let's say console.log, and this will be member created event, and here we're going to have the entire event. Okay, so I thought I already had that in place, but the member we were getting was actually from the approval, which will only happen if they're pre-approved. So that's a bit of a problem. So let's publish this, run the test again quickly, and then we'll be able to check and see what data we have. So let me just give this a refresh. Let's do blah, blah, 1234 @gmail.com. Password 1234 and employer ID. Let's do again ABC123, and I'm just going to hit sign up here. And then hopefully now we will have that full member data in the back end, and we can check and see if that field is included inside of, there we go. Okay, so member created event, whoops, this one. And here we have all the data from that we could possibly get from the sign up. And let's see if we have that field there. So I don't see it. Let me just double check. I'm going to go over here and grab everything that we have here. And let's go to our JSON viewer. And let's put this right over here, viewer. Metadata, it's not in there. Entity, yeah, let's see, contact, custom fields. No, it's weird that it didn't add it to the custom fields of the contact either, because I would expect that to be in there. Let's go to our editor, to our site members here, and let's just give this like a refresh, and let's see where that data is being stored. So we have 2 pending members. Let's see over here. Contact info, show more info, employer ID. Okay, your custom fields. So it is showing that over here, but for some reason it's not showing us the custom fields directly over here once we get this. Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate because it means we're going to have to do a little more work in order to get this working. Let me just double check and see if there's anything here in terms of the settings that I can change that might. Oh, this could add rules here. Let's see what rules we can add here. Oh, this is just for the form itself. Yeah, this is just like to change the behavior of the form. Yeah. Okay. That's a bit of a bummer, but yeah. Okay, so we'll have to, that means we're going to have to use our contact ID in order to get the contact and get that information. So let's explore how we're going to do that. Here I am in the Wix documentation, and specifically I'm in the Get Contact API here in the SDK, part of CRM, Members and Contacts, Contact v4. And essentially what we need to do is we just need to import this from Wix CRM and then call get contact with the contact ID. So not so bad. Let's go ahead and implement that in our editor. So here, let's put this, I'm going to put this in the same member approval file just because I'm lazy and I don't want to create a new file, but you might want to split those things up. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to install this now. And we're probably also going to use elevation here as well. Let's see if Wix has an elevated example. Yeah, get contact by ID with elevated permission. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab this example that they have right over here just to save us a little time. And I'm going to put this on the bottom here. And I'm going to move this inside of our function itself. And then here we're going to say, okay, so here we're going to pass in a contact ID. So I'll just change this to say contact ID just to be a little more explicit. And I'm going to erase these two because I don't need them at the moment. And here we're handling errors. So that's great. So let's go ahead and test this out and make sure that we actually get the field that we want when we pass in the contact ID. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to run this. And we need the contact ID, which luckily we should have here in the JSON viewer. It's always hard to copy things from the JSON viewer though. So let's go ahead and see if that gives me the whole everything that we need. So let's go ahead and paste this right over here. There we go. Okay, so this is the contact ID. Sometimes the contact ID is the same as the member ID. Sometimes it isn't. I don't exactly understand when and why. You can probably read up on it, but to me it's a little complex. So I'm not going to assume that they're the same thing. And I'm just going to go ahead here and hit run. And there we go. Okay, so contact returned. And let's see what we have over here. So we have info, let's see, extended fields, items, and this. Okay, so wow, this is, we need to drill down quite a bit to get this. So let's see here, primary, okay. So let's create a function. And again, this is something that might be like a little different in your specific use case. So you're really going to need to see what this specific field name is in your website. This is not something you can copy from me per se. But let's go ahead and create another function. So let's say export async function get contact employer ID. Okay. And here we're going to pass in a contact ID. And what we'll do is first thing we'll do over here is we'll call const contact equals to await. Let's change the name of this to get contact. Await get contact ID. Okay, so that will give us the entire contact. And what we want to do is we want to return, like we want to drill down and get specifically to that contact ID. So let's take a look here again and we'll see. So it's contact.info.extendedfields.items. So I can remember at most three things. So it's contact.info.extendedfields.items, and luckily there's like an autocomplete here. And then the next thing after that, info, extended fields items, and then it's specifically this one right over here. So let me just go ahead and copy that. Hopefully that copies over. I might need to copy this entire JSON. Let's see. Dot this, and so since this is written out in a very weird way, instead of doing dot over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this like that as a string, just like that. Okay, and this, if this works, then this should just return the employer ID. So let's go ahead and test that out. I'm going to run this, and the contact ID, I'll use the same one that we used over here. So let me just copy that, put that right over here, and hit run. There we go. So you see here it returned with ABC123. Okay. So now we have access to that ID that we put over here in the sign up. And the next thing we're going to need to do before we connect this all together is to make sure that inside of our collection, we also have a list of those IDs. So let's go over here to pre-approved members, and I'm going to open the collection. And I'm going to add a field over here, which will be the employer ID. Okay, just like that. And again, you could do this how you want. You could have just employer IDs. You could have employer IDs matched to other data. You could also even set up a system where it has to match both the email and the employer ID for this to work. But for now, I'm just going to do that it only has to match the employer ID. So let's add some employer IDs here. So we'll have here, let's say ABC123. Let's have ABC456. ABC 789. Okay, so those are the employer ID. So again, even if this email doesn't match, it's still going to approve people that match one of these employer IDs. Okay, so that's just note that that's how we're setting up the system, and you could set it up differently by matching the queries to both fields. You could do lots of things. Okay, I'm just giving two examples of things that you could do. So now that we have these employer IDs set up, let's go back to our member approval process. And so here inside of our verify approval, we're going to need to make a change. And that is that instead of comparing the email, we're going to be comparing the employer IDs. So this is going to be employer ID field. And also here, in terms of what we pass into the function, it's also going to be the employer ID. And that we also need to pass in over here as a parameter. Okay, so this verify approval function now takes an employer ID. And okay, so let's trace this back. So we have approve member, and here we have approve verified member. Okay, so this is the function that we're actually calling from our event that happens when somebody signs up. But here we're going to need to change what this is. So instead of member ID and email, we're going to change this to contact ID. And well, we're going to need all three actually, because remember I said that member ID might not actually match contact ID. So let's have member ID, contact ID, and employer ID. Okay, and here we're going to verify the approval with the employer ID. And then we're going to need to verify the approval with the employer ID, but in order to get the employer ID, we actually need to use the contact ID. So this is a small mistake that I made here. So we're not going to get the employer ID from the event. So this doesn't need to be here. Instead, what we need to do is we need to say const employer ID equals to await get contact employer ID and pass in the contact ID here. Okay, so from the event, we're going to get the member ID and contact ID. We're going to get the employer ID using the contact ID. And then we're going to check if they're approved by sending the employer ID into our verify approval function. And if they're approved, then we're going to approve the member just like before using the member ID. So let's go ahead into our event and make the changes here to approve verified member. So let's go over here to events.js. And over here, so approve verified member. So instead of member ID email, here we're going to need our contact ID. And let's see how we get the contact ID. So we're going to go, let me just zoom out here for a second. Let's go back to our handy dandy JSON here. So it's entity contact ID. Okay, pretty simple. So let's go back over here to the editor, and member ID is event.entity.id, and here it's going to be const contact ID equals to event.entity.contact ID. Okay, just like that. Member with member ID, and let me add in here a log, contact ID created. And then, so this email we technically don't really need anymore. And we're going to approve verified member with member ID and contact ID. Okay. So let's go ahead and test this out. Very exciting. So let's go ahead and publish that. There we go. And let's head back here to the live site. And now we're going to sign up. So let's just do email. First, let me clear these logs here just so we have a clean slate. And let's sign up with a new user. So let's do Pam Beasley. I think that's how you spell Beasley, maybe, at gmail.com. And password is not important. And let's have our, did I refresh the page? Did I refresh? For those of you who are watching, you probably remember. I'm gonna publish and refresh again because I got distracted, so I don't remember if I actually did that. So let me just do that before we run the test. And let's do this again. Pam Beasley at gmail.com. Password doesn't matter. And I'm going to use one of our approved employee IDs. So we'll use ABC123. So let's go ahead here and I'm going to click sign up. I'm not a robot. Okay. So let's go ahead here and refresh for a second. And remember, this takes some time. So initially, oh, wow, that one went really quickly for some reason. So you see Pam Beasley here is already approved, pre-approved. And let's take a look at our logs here. 3 new logs were added. So yeah, we have the member ID and contact ID, which in this case are the same, okay? Even though we didn't make the assumption that they are. So now let's just do one last test and verify that somebody who does not have a correct employer ID will not be pre-approved. So let's do Stanley Hudson at gmail.com. And here we'll have another password. And let's just try a random set of string of letters and numbers. And let's go ahead here and we'll click sign up. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead now and refresh our site members. Okay, and we see here we have 3 pending members. Stanley Hudson's over here. And let's just check our logs. So we could see the member was created, but we don't have that log of member approved because the member was not approved because they did not have the correct ID. So we're going to wrap up here. Just to recap, we did 2 demos. One demo where we saw how to pre-approve based on email. That's a more robust approach because it really works based on, it'll work for all the different sign-up methods because they all use email. If you want to use another factor like employer ID or something else, which was our second demo, then you're going to need to use either the custom or the Velo signup. And there are also many other combinations that you can do. The sky is the limit. These were just 2 demos. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And I highly recommend subscribing to the channel so that you don't miss out on cool videos like this that come out weekly. And I'll see you next time.